Worm is a web serial by J.C. McCrae, also known as Wildbow. You can read Worm in its original format by visiting parahumans.wordpress.com or donate to Wildbow's Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. This story isn't intended for young or sensitive readers. Readers who are on the lookout for trigger warnings are advised to give Worm a pass. For a complete list, check the description for all of Worm's trigger warnings. Track is on SoundCloud.
Hell yeah. Oh, don't think I haven't listened to it a lot. I listen to your SoundCloud a lot, Michael.
Thank you, Alan.
Good morning, Brockton Bay. Check your zip codes so you know which villain service provider is in your area.
Very nice.
I'm always just waiting to see what we get to start every episode. I love it. All right, welcome back, everybody.
Thank you.
Both to everybody listening and everybody here in the room. Heavy quotes there in the room with me today.
Soon, one day
soon. It is myself, Jacob, joined by our rereaders today. So we have Alan, Hannah,
Heyo.
and Nick. Welcome, welcome. And as always, we have Michael making us sound lovely, chiming in now and then when we pronounce the name wrong, or rather to reinforce when we pronounce the name correctly.
Yes, of course.
And today we are diving into the first half of Arc 8 of Worm. So chapters, I'm sorry, I said that backwards.
Yeah,
I was Michael, about to say, scrub that.
No.
We're never wrong.
Arc 11, first 8 chapters.
This is the content that people want.
Yeah. I know. Gosh. If you thought we edited it beforehand, now you know. You get it as raw as you can. Chapters 1 through 8 of Arc 11. And we're gonna dive in here. So let's get started. Fun few chapters. As always, Hannah, do you want to kind of kick us off with a couple chapter summaries or a chapter summary?
Yeah, let's start with just chapter 1 for now. We open with Taylor's nightmare that feels insanely real and absolutely scared the shit out of me. And we check out her brand new lair. Taylor goes for a little bit of a jog down by the dock and accidentally runs into her dad, Danny.
Ooh.
Awkwardness.
Man.
I forgot about the nightmare.
Everything Cat ever feared, you know?
What?
Bam, coils ya dad. We knew it was coming. We're still not proven wrong.
That's actually hilarious, though. That was something that Kat said pretty early on. Did she not? I'm pretty sure she did.
She was like, "It's Mr. Gladly or it's her dad."
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm misremembering that, but I'm pretty sure she was. She at least guessed
that Danny was a cape himself, but
yeah,
She did.
So far that appears to not be the case.
So far.
Allegedly.
No problem.
Allegedly, yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah, but no, that nightmare, that opening nightmare really, like, I read it before, but every time I reread things, I'm like, I don't remember this at all. And that was like a moment where I was like, what's happening? What did I come in on?
Yeah. I think for me, the moment I remembered it was a nightmare after rereading it was when she describes like how she had beaten all of the travelers, and it kind of hit me. I was like, wait, there's no way Taylor could solo all the travelers.
Right. Very wishful thinking.
Yeah, sure, Taylor. Whatever.
I totally did it, guys.
But at what cost? I was just too strong.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. Then of course she wakes up in the cold sweats. Like, I've had nightmares about my dad being villainous. That's terrifying in so many ways.
Mm.
And, like, coming
Go
off
on.
Okay, well, we're not going to talk about the dream that I had about my dad being a pirate, but the point is that Taylor is like that's a terrifying thought. It's like she hasn't seen her dad in weeks. Like she doesn't know how he's doing. She doesn't know, where he's at currently. Like that's, she's still a kid. She's still, 15, 16. Like it makes sense for her to have nightmares about her dad like that.
It makes sense with all the stress that she's been under. Something I notice about Taylor just in this arc in general that will come back is how much of a burden she puts on herself to do everything.
Yeah.
It's very clear that she does not think that other people can do what she does.
Yeah, that's a really good insight into Taylor's character, I think. We get that a bit in the earlier arcs as well, but I definitely think that's something that is starting to build in her. Is this like, and it's kind of funny because it's so relatable, right? Like we all at times are like, I'm the only one who can do this. Nobody else can do this. Somebody else might have gotten it wrong.
Exactly.
That's a deep Mass Effect cut for anybody who. Okay, thank you, thank you, Alan.
You're welcome.
Fucking nerd.
What I find really interesting about this whole dream sequence thing is that we've already had a bunch of jumping around in this arc. Like, I mean, the first one starts off with, the wards and, we're bopping around there from point of view to point of view. And then we're back with the Undersiders again, but it is still jumping around in the timeline. So everything's very, you don't know where you're going to end up next. We haven't established a real pattern. So when this one kicks off with, we're obviously in the future and Taylor's done all this stuff already. Like you're about to be like, okay, is the entire arc just going to be backtracking this? Is that what we're doing now?
Yeah, right.
Like we're going to start with this one and the rest of the episodes are going to be not that. Like we're going to following up to that. So, it gives that lead in with the chapters beforehand or the whole arcs beforehand that like structurally this is possible since we're obviously experimenting. We're not just going chronologically, this way that, season 1 or arcs 1 through 8 went.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah. And it is clear too that there is some kind of a time jump. So,
yeah.
The fact that it does open this way, it is a nice sort of cold open to throw you into the middle of the action, and you might be thinking, okay, what's going on? How is this happening? Yeah, and then it just gets weird at the end with Coil.
Yeah.
But it's just the way dreams are. It does feel like a dream in that regard.
It did get pretty oddly specific with the poison thing, the dust. I was like, what? This is so much information for dust in a dream. Like dream logic for sure, but like, okay.
Definitely some Google searches that have seeped their way into Taylor's head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like was
Hey, Michael,
Google searching all these weird.
Can you Google that
and
since I don't
poisons?
want it in my history? Where to buy poison dust?
Oh, sure.
Poison dust. I was about to say, if you just Google poison dust, you were gonna get some weird shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might have to be a little.
I know a fairy.
A fairy.
Excellent.
They're just called drug dealers.
Is your fairy's
Michael.
name Anthrax?
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
We move from Dream Danny to Real Danny.
Danny. Woof.
Yeah.
What a run.
Yeah. I love all of this. It's awkward, but I don't know. Something about this domestic side
Bless his
feels
heart.
real nice.
I was going to say, this is another example. We've mentioned this several times, and it won't be the last. But I really love the way Wild Bow writes dialogue. It just feels so natural in a really uncomfortable way sometimes. And like this doesn't feel like pre-generated dialogue. Like it feels like a conversation that would happen.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoy reading.
Yeah, the uncomfortability and the kind of his awkwardness of, not wanting to say the wrong thing because he doesn't want to push her further, and the fact that Taylor recognizes that and sees it and is like, oh man, I can see that he's struggling to even say what he wants to say because he doesn't want to push me farther away.
I forget if I was talking with you, Jacob, about this, or maybe I was just something I heard. But it was something about how Scott Pilgrim, the movie, how the dialogue went in that, where it's Edgar Wright, so it's perfectly on beat. It's very clean in that regard, but at the same time, it's very accurate and it's awkward, uncomfortable, offbeat, but once again, in a rhythmic sort of sense. And this feels a lot like that, where like it's clean dialogue, nobody's stuttering, nobody's, oh, you go first. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Kind of the way that natural dialogue goes, even on this podcast, as obviously shown. But this feels like that. It's so real and awkward and uncomfortable. Watching Fargo right now, you get that same vibe where there's a beat, there's a rhythm, there's a pace, but at the same time, it's like jazz, where like characters are just kind of, they're so unique. It's not just cookie cutter back and forth,
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to
There's definitely a skill to that. Yeah. No, I was finishing that thought. That's all I had to say.
Yeah, no, that's good.
No.
I want to tie it back to the base scene too, where Taylor's kind of looking around and describing her very empty supervillain base. But there's this small part, as I was just kind of looking back through, where it says, she's looking at herself, and she's saying like, I felt comfortable with my body, like I'd somehow earned it the way I was, and it was mine now. So she's getting more comfortable physically, but then she says, if there was anything about myself that I didn't like, it was primarily psychological. Guilt was a big one. The idea that my dad might dislike me if he got to know me now, that was another. That my mom, were she alive and showing up at the door, might be disappointed in me, sobering. And so that connection to that moment where she's thinking about her dad, and then she sees her dad later, just to add to that awkwardness of like, oh, I'm just lying up a storm to keep my dad hopefully still respectful of me. That even with the distance between them, she still cares what he thinks of her.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's so tough. It's so tough because, like, I mean, you have enough insecurities as a girl, and as a teenage girl, even more so. And growing up with basically her dad as being her primary parent, that's there, like that the broken relationship, it hits really hard, and like the idea that this person who's supposed to be your father, supposed to know you, who you interact with every day, like he doesn't interact with her every day. He doesn't know who she even is anymore. Like the person that she's become through Skitter is so vastly different from who she is as Taylor, or who she used to be as Taylor, because who she is as Taylor now and who she used to be as Taylor is also vastly different. It's like, is there any way for her to reconcile those two identities of who she is, especially to her dad? And like the safer option is not to do it at all, which is, what she's doing. She's distancing herself. But like, I think at first it's this idea of like, well, I have to save him from the secret identity of mine, of the secrets that I've created. And now it's like, you're not just, trying to save him or protect him or whatever. Like, you've created something that's so different from your old life that he wouldn't even understand who you are now and the decisions that you've made.
Yeah.
It's kind of heartbreaking, actually.
It is. Yeah.
It's terrible because they didn't have that broken of a relationship.
No, I feel like they had a really good relationship at the beginning. Like the kind of camaraderie, the quiet, camaraderie that they had together. They're both very introverted type of people, but there was clearly a connection, and it just so quickly deteriorated.
Yeah.
And also the layer that was
Oh
I love
my
that
God.
Taylor has fully embraced the evil villain shit.
I love
It's
it.
like,
so
I'm gonna have
much.
all these cages, and I'm gonna have the beetle flip on the light switch so that I can sit
Yes.
menacingly behind, like over in my
Oh.
chair, and like,
Backlit by bugs.
yeah, backlit by bugs,
Frick
and like
yes.
spin around, and then like, as you know, seemingly by magic, everything turns on. I'll be like, welcome to my lair.
Yeah, big Megamind mood there.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Oh my gosh. I was thinking the same thing. I just, it's so great. And I love that, like, because, you know, like, who hasn't been, you know, a 16-year-old up at 3 a.m. rearranging a room? Because obviously, like, we've all been at that point. This is like the ultimate version of that. Like, I get a whole freaking lair to myself. I get 3 floors. Like, oh, I'm gonna pimp this shit out so hard.
And this is gonna be the evil throne room floor.
Oh, I love it. And I love the distinction between the top floor being Taylor and the second floor being Skitter, and like having that distinction because, well, obviously because they're the two identities, but I love that it's not just the distinction of like, oh yes, this is where I shall take guests as Skitter. Like, I love that so much. It's so smart, and probably not something I would have thought of, but that Skitter has thought of it, and I love that.
Yeah.
Also, the comments about like, but it feels so empty, and all I can read is like, clearly I lack henchmen.
It's actually, that's something I've been thinking about, that I'm actually, it's something that's kind of been formulating. So Taylor constantly has access to these bugs. Like, they're just at the edge of her mind constantly. Does she think of her bugs as her minions, or does she think of them as extensions of herself?
I think she thinks of them more like extensions of her power.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, extensions, well, and with that, probably extensions of herself. Because, I mean, the way it talks about how, because she can feel, not pain or anything like that, but she can sense her environment around her bugs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It does read more like an extension of herself, I think, is probably how I've always read that, but open for debate.
Yeah, I think so too. I just, that thought of like, you know, she's in her lair and she's all alone, but like, you've created all of these cages that are just, you know, these terrariums that are overflowing with your bugs. So like, do you feel alone with all of your bugs here, or do you feel like they're just more versions of yourself, or they're extensions of your power in this case? So like, they don't count as keeping you company in a weird way that like people would feel like keeping. I don't know. That's just something I was thinking.
Well, I think it's actually I think a good point, because I think there is a pretty clear distinction between Taylor's relationship with her insects and like Bitch and her dogs, where Bitch very, very clearly has her pack, and the dogs are part of that. And the difference of their course being that Bitch doesn't have any actual like mind control over her dogs either. But yeah, I mean, like, that's very clearly like her group and her henchmen, right, if you want to make that comparison, that kind of thing. Whereas Taylor and as Skitter has really no care for her bugs at all. Like, kills them, destroys them, burns them, drowns them. Like,
they've always felt more like tools to me than extensions of herself, even.
Interesting.
Because I'm pretty sure she can turn off her connection to them as well. Because I remember her saying early on how if she had full connection to her bugs all the time, she would have gone crazy, because the sensory overload in her brain would have just been too much. So she's able to focus in on certain ones, or seemingly turn off her connection to certain ones. Or even like now it seems like she's gotten to the point where she can kind of say, do this, and then kind of leave it in the back of her mind and not think too hard about it. At least that's been my take on it. I don't know that that's, I don't know if that's accurate or not. But that they do feel more like tools just tools to her, not necessarily extensions of herself or her personality or her power.
Yeah, I like that.
Maybe kind of like passive perception versus active perception.
Yeah. And like Jacob said, she doesn't have a relationship with these creatures. And I think part of that just has to do with the type of creatures they are. You can't. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have ever had a pet bug before, or a pet worm, but like an ant farm or something. But
I've had a pet rock, but I don't think that.
Yeah, I mean, the conversations are just about as riveting with the pet rock, you know.
Just as riveting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think tools is an apt description.
I feel like going back to the loft and feeling alone and stuff. I feel like this is like she's in the artist phase that just made it big, but now they don't have anyone around them. Phase, like musician or like movie star or any artist really. It's like the classic phase every time.
Yeah.
Big old house all alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, absolutely.
She really is all alone. Like, she's got her territory, which that is interesting to me. I think we talked about it last time, but the idea that Coil put her here, of all places. But, like, they're all, the Undersiders are also isolated now.
Yeah.
And also separated. I mean, Lisa's surrounded by people, but, like, that's tactical.
I mean, this honestly sort of builds into the chapters to come, and maybe we dive in now. But like, I think that's part of probably why Skitter makes a pretty quick play to control her territory and hire underlings is probably to sort of reclaim some of that group dynamic in a way.
Yeah.
Hire friends.
If you pay people enough money,
who needs real friends when you can just pay them?
But also, and maybe this comes up later. This is something I've truly forgotten. So if this is a spoiler, we can edit it out later, Michael. Are the travelers also split up, controlling territories, or was this just an Undersider thing?
I believe this was just an Undersider thing. If I remember
they do
right,
say that there are 9 territories.
Oh, that's right. Lisa does say that later.
Interesting.
So I believe the travelers have different territories.
I think
interesting.
Well, if we, and this might get boring, so we can cut this out if need be. But if there are 9 territories, how many Undersiders are there?
There are well, Gru and Imp are together.
So count them as one.
So there are 5 territories held by the Undersiders.
Okay. 5 territories held by the Undersiders. That you add Coil having 1 at minimum, and then the Travelers together having 1 at minimum. I wouldn't be surprised.
I think the Travelers have.
Do the Travelers have 2? 2 between them?
Because I want to say that Ballistic has his own.
Okay, gotcha.
Interesting.
So maybe there's something there. I don't think they're as split up as the Undersiders, though. My impression, if I remember right, even Coil says I have other things that I need them to do. So my impression is,
I think you're right,
is that they're not as split up as the Undersiders are.
Interesting. I'm sure it'll come up again, but that is interesting.
Yeah.
That, like, do we feel like maybe that's because Coil trusts the Undersiders? Like, they've proven themselves to be able to handle their own territories?
I was thinking maybe it was more that Coil didn't want the Undersiders together for whatever reason.
They're too powerful.
Yeah. Well, not even that. Like, and again, I have honestly no memory of this whole dynamic, so I'm completely just guessing again. But like, I mean, it feels like one of those things where Coil used his power, got a few different answers from Dinah, and was like, okay, my plan works better if the Undersiders are split up, that kind of thing. So curious to see how that plays out.
I think, though, it also probably has a lot to do with the Traveler situation. We don't know much about it yet at this point, but we do know that Coil is trying to help them with something that feels pretty urgent. And I would imagine that the Travelers don't want to be too far from that. And so I think...
Yeah,
her name has been brought up.
Yeah, we do know that the Travelers are...
what's her name?
Noelle.
Noelle, yeah. So
are concerned about her.
yeah, they have this concern about Noelle, which we don't know much about yet, but we know they're concerned.
Other
So
than she's
I
locked
imagine
behind a very large door.
yes,
Yeah.
I
Here we go.
imagine
I have it.
that there's a good portion of that too, if I had to guess.
That's true. That's a good point.
Go right ahead,
I
Alan.
don't know the source on this, but I'm looking at a picture. It's got Skitter, with the bay with the ferry. It's got Regent to the south, Ruin Imp to the west, Hellhound / Bitch to the north. Parian holds Dolltown, which is
that's
sort of a little
right.
in between Regent's, Gru's, and Ballistic's territory.
Interesting.
Below Regent and Ballistic is Sundancer. To the right of Sundancer and Regent is Tricksters. And then all the way in the corner, sort of with Trickster, is Genesis.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's a lovely sidetrack we went down,
Yes.
but very necessary.
Yeah.
So, as they always are. But yeah, let's get into the next couple chapters.
Yeah.
Where we get into territories.
Yeah, we got the D-Gens from Upcountry.
I was about to say, yeah. So we've got chapter 2. Skitter claims her territory and passes out supplies with help from some of Coil's soldiers. Deals with a challenger from the merchants, and then talks very briefly with Battery, the hero Battery. And then chapter 3, Skitter dispenses with the merchants in her territory from the safety of her lair, which is that's so cool. And we get a little bit of a flashback to her conversation with Sierra and her promise to help find Sierra's brother, Bryce.
God, I love Taylor running around in the, the military
the
canvas
military
truck
with her soldier boys and like
and she's
cool.
like, hey, I tried to find my upper limit in terms of how many bugs I could control.
God.
And I kept gathering bugs and I never hit the upper limit.
Ugh.
Damn.
God damn. Woo! Taylor, you powerful.
Yeah, I love the slow growth.
And then follows that up with more of that, like talking about really leaning into like showmanship and being the villain. Does the whole thing where she like gathers the bugs at one corner behind the crowd.
So cool.
And then jumps it over to like land, and then she like steps out as if she like teleported via bugs.
I love it so much. Well, it's so smart too, because we've talked before about, you don't necessarily want everyone to be aware of what you can do. And so having a little bit of like showmanship, a little bit of trickery is good, because that way, if you do run up against someone who, has your file on hand, that way, you can pull out little tricksies, and I just love it so much.
To keep with the Megamind comparisons, huge flashbacks to the climax of that film, where Megamind, you might be a villain, but you're no super villain. Oh yeah, what's the difference? Presentation.
Oh my
so
god,
good.
It's so good. Yeah, it's. I feel like this is such a great moment of like that I've got my own lair, I've got my own people, I'm living by myself, I don't answer to anybody. Well, maybe Coil, but not really. Like, I don't answer to anybody. I'm in charge of my own space, and I'm gonna make a name for myself in my territory. And that, like, this coming into herself even more so now is so much fun. I love, like, all hail Skitter, let's go.
Yeah. And I love her approach to it as well, with just using like basic supplies and food and stuff. Yeah, just to sort of get the general population, one, on your good side, because who's going to turn that down? But two, make them kind of like dependent on you too, right? So there's that sort of backhanded force of control there, which is really interesting. And that's such a common thing too. Obviously, like supply chain control is a really big, real, like in the real world, it's how dictators and gangs and things like that. That's what they control, is controlling the flow of goods and necessary stuff.
And she does care too. That's the thing that I like about her still as a character, is that even throughout this, she's still like got this hint of like, I'm still a good guy. Like I'm still a good person at least. And that's why she's doing it the way she is too. You know, she's not going in with a show of force. Although, forgive me if somebody else mentioned this already, but the other thing I love about the way she takes out the merchants in the scene is she has this like bug surveillance force that is just all over her territory, almost to the edges of it is how far she can reach now. And she's just like, basically she's just got a bead on everybody of like, okay, these are these people. I've got some merchants here. Got to watch out for them. And she just like, it almost makes her feel omnipresent in a weird way.
Yes.
And that's really cool to see her again coming into her own as a hero and saying, yeah, I got this. Like, don't worry about it. I can handle these guys in her own way. Not in the way that, you know, Coil or Bitch or any other character would, but in her own, both caring, but also needing to know all the information way. And I love it.
Like, flip that over with like, I get, okay, so that's her taking care of everybody, which, you know, her sipping tea just casually. I'd like to think that I can't remember if this is the exact point in time, but I'd like to think that she's sipping tea talking to Sierra about the merchants at the time that she's like currently like, I'm sorry, what did you say? And then just like outside you hear like screaming. You know, just
they're
sipping
not
tea,
happening at the same time, but I do love that.
running the world, justifying your Bakuda-like actions. But but the other, on the flip side, she lets the dude run up and just to show people that she can't be stabbed, lets this guy try to stab her like multiple times.
Such a baller move.
I would argue too many times.
Yeah, maybe a little.
Like
maybe a few too many.
You didn't have to let him do all that. Like you could let him do once, like to prove a point, but then you let him go like 2 or 3 more times.
Yeah.
So good.
I love the internal monologue too there because she gets hit and she's like, oh, fuck that hurt.
All right, remember,
can't let him see me.
That's right. Never let him see you bleed.
Yeah, stand up straight. All right, cool. Yeah, don't forget, you're invincible. Okay.
Invincibility sucks.
Yeah.
Is that all you got?
Just like a little bit of blood comes. That all you got?
Yeah. But also, like that would definitely work.
Oh my gosh, it's so intimidating. It's so intimidating because like we have these huge superpowers that we know can get hit by a train and are totally fine, but the common man, as it were, does not know that Skitter bleeds like everybody else. And so like to see that happen and kind of this fallacy of you know, what are her powers? Like we don't really know. Like, it's so good. It just further cements this image of who Skitter is as you know, as a villain of her territory. Like, so good.
I imagine there is a big dividing line essentially between heroes that can get shot and heroes that can't.
Yeah.
Because on one side you have, you know, the Proctorate, you have all these people with either armor or are physically, you know, they're invulnerable, essentially. And then on the other side, you have what feel like humans with a power. Gru being one of those, Lisa being another. Like these are human beings with a superpower attached to them, as opposed to, you know, Glory Girl.
Yeah,
if you don't know her,
power.
Glory Girl is, you know, mini Superman. Like,
right.
For all you know, she will take a bullet and then throw you through a truck. Like, there's a big difference in feel between your Tattletales and your Glory Girls. Yeah. And to show someone that, like, hey, you thought I was a human. It's like, no, I'm not a villain. I'm a super villain.
Fuck yeah, boy. I love it so much. The show of power just gets me every time.
Yeah. So
any final thoughts before moving on?
Alan said Protectorate wrong and Bakuda wrong. So
is it Proctorate? Protectorate?
No, Protectorate. Like they
It is Protectorate?
Protectorate. You said proctor.
Not like they
a
proctor
proctored
tests.
test.
Don't they proctor the city? And it's a test of good and evil. And if you do evil, they kick you out.
Yeah.
No.
Society.
Yeah.
It's
That makes sense in
not
my head.
Barracuda, Alan.
Barracuda.
It's, Alan, I think it's time for your protectorate exam.
Hey.
I failed.
Turn in golf.
All right. Anyways,
Won't be the last
that
time.
was my comment. I'm good.
Well, we actually, I
Thank
do
you,
want to,
Michael.
I do want to say this before we move on because Alan mentioned it, and I think it's worth bringing it up. Taylor does bring up Bakuda, and it's like, interesting how what I'm doing now, it reminds me quite a lot of what she did, and I don't know about you guys. But that sent a couple bit of flags in my brain. And also, that's interesting that Taylor made that connection. Because she's always been very clear, even with her own self, even in her own head, that she is a hero wearing villain's clothing. Like she is still a hero underneath. And this feels like, because she's making references to Bakuda, it's just interesting to me.
Yeah, I think she's not blind to the comparisons there. And I think Taylor is like the example that you could point to for the classic everyone's the hero of their own story, or every villain's the hero of their own story,
Yes.
Where Taylor certainly fits that mold because she calls herself a villain. She recognizes that's what she is. But she sees herself as a hero, as a good guy. But no, it's a very interesting comparison because, like, obviously, without the terrorism attached to it, there is almost like that hint of admiration for Bakuda, and probably to a greater extent Lung too, or a lesser extent, I should say. Just seeing like, oh, I have a territory, just like they had a territory. I have people just like they had people. Like it is interesting to get into that. I don't think it was like, that's right, my role model Bakuda.
No, I don't think so either.
Right,
but I do think it's interesting that she did bring that up, and that was her reference.
I think she's acknowledging her sort of intentional slip into villainy.
Yeah,
like this is par for the course.
Intentional slide into
if you're a villain, you have a territory. Like that's just she's recognizing that.
I love it.
And then we move on to other territories.
Yeah. So in chapter 3, chapter 4. Chapter 4, Taylor meets up with Lisa in Lisa's territory, dressed as herself rather than Skitter, and gets together with the dates that Lisa sets up for them, and they head to the merchant party at the mall where literally all the mall things have happened, and now it's just a very broken and sad merchant mall now.
We're making use of this set.
I love Lisa's whole setup here.
So good.
Oh, it's great. It's perfect for her.
I love Lisa's broom closet full of interns and information. I love her harem of sexy special forces.
Oh gosh, she's living the dream.
She's like, "All right, boys, we're going shopping." You're like, "Oh, get your best sweats on. We're going to the mall."
Sweats on.
Did
she say that actually?
No.
Sweats? Oh, I wish. Okay.
I just hear the "Put on your Sunday clothes" from Hello Dolly, and it's like them traipsing off arm in arm towards the mall, just like skipping down the sidewalk.
In jumpsuits, though. Yeah.
I
don't remember all their names, but I do love the camaraderie.
Minor,
too.
Jaw, Brooks, Senegal.
Yeah,
Bless you for knowing that.
I love this crew.
Alan's writing the fanfic.
Yeah. Well, basically.
Yeah, but I love how whichever two are the two that are left over. When
Senegal and Brooks.
No, I think because Senegal was with Taylor.
Senegal and Jaw, right?
No, I think it was I was going to say Senegal was with Taylor, I think.
Correct. You're right.
But whichever two are left over, they're like, wait a second, who do we go with? And Lisa's just like, other, obviously.
It's Brooks and Minor. It's Brooks and Minor.
Yeah.
You can see the
I love
camaraderie,
it.
and I think it's just a well-written part showing sort of the friendship between these soldiers who clearly have worked together for at least some amount of time and are used to being around each other to the point where they can kind of joke with each other and be like, all right, yeah, we're a couple. Come on, bro.
sweetie.
Let's
Yeah.
I love it so
It's
much.
great. It's great.
Even when they show up to the mall and it's like they're letting them in the door and you know he's
That
got it. Senegal has his arm around Taylor and what's his face Brooks has his arm on the small of what's his face's back and then like leading him
Minor.
in like oh my gosh Minor.
Yeah.
I love it so much. It's such a great image of I guess the six of them walking in like so good.
Yeah.
And then the no gaze moment where they
Yes.
just beat the crap out of the doorman.
So good.
Oh man,
So
like
good.
the
we stand a
equivalent in
couple of
my
gay
mind
kings.
would be like, if the visual image, this is going to be for Star Wars fans, would be like in Mos Eisley in Episode 4 where the bartender's like, "Hey, we don't serve your kind here" to the droids.
Yeah.
Imagine him doing that, but the droid walking in was like General Grievous.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it is like it's kind of that feeling of like you just imagine these two huge soldiers, and they're I mean I know that if I was a big muscular soldier guy with another big muscular soldier guy, I would maybe be hamming up the couple part a little bit. And they're like, "Hey, we don't serve your kind here," and just get absolutely wrecked. It's fantastic, as it should be.
Also, for
Yes.
those out there, before you say anything, Nick does know that General Grievous is a droid. He was just using that as a general example.
Yes, General Grievous is a cyborg.
Yeah, I was going to say, got to get
Oh
ahead
my
of that one.
Yeah,
True.
we're just going to get ahead of that one. I know
Before we get the angry Star Wars fans.
No, wait, Michael, take that out. That's free engagement. Michael, that's free engagement. Cut this part
No,
out.
you fucking nerds. The lot of
He said, "Fight me." He's a droid. He's always been a droid.
Don't worry, Nick. The people who know and would have commented have already commented before they got to this part of the podcast.
I was going to say, you're safe in that regard. Like, they stopped listening at the
They
moment
paused,
you said it.
Yeah, they've been writing and then
They
they
actually
unpaused
emailed
and now
you.
they're upset because they're like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yes, according to Wikipedia, Grievous, born
Yeah.
Haimain Jai Shilal, was a Kalish male warlord who served within the military forces of the Confederate.
Oh my god, I understand nerddom and I know that this group is very nerdy, but you all are the most
Test us.
nerdy nerds and I love you all
Yeah.
for it.
Test me. Test me on
Have
this.
not
knowledge.
yet begun to
To quote
fight.
another
Oh
movie, just wait till I get started. Just wait till I get going.
You know that meme? Is it True Blood? It's not True Blood. What's the other? I don't know. The meme with the three like vampires staring down
Oh
on the
God.
crowd.
Is it Vampire Diaries?
Probably.
Is it Vampire, Who
maybe
knows?
maybe Vampire Diaries. I don't know.
Oh God.
I messed up that fandom, so we're gonna get the angry fans there.
It's
I
fine.
apologize.
It's okay. Alan will redeem it in dissecting.
It's okay. Vampire Diaries has thoroughly infected my mind, and we'll talk about it in
I take
Dissecting
full
Worm.
blame for that. Thank you so much.
Actually,
Anyway,
blame Jenny
to,
Nicholson
I was
and
gonna say it was
Zen
Jenny
Hannah.
To get back on track as best we can. Never. So yeah, we kind of flew through those chapters, but there's really not too much to dive in there. I don't want to skip past it if anybody had something they wanted to say, but just sort of meeting up with Lisa, introduction to her territory, her squad, and then we get to the mall
Mhm.
where the merchants are
Holding
having
a party.
a little party.
It's the mall. This is the first time I've realized
Yeah, it's
that we
the
have
mall.
been to this mall
Yeah.
numerous
like
times.
3 times now. Like
3 or
At
4.
least.
Yeah,
we've got
because
Sophia pulled some earlobes in the mall.
That was a
Taylor
different place.
slapped the shit out of Emma.
Yeah, it was. This was the.
downright punched her.
Or did she punch her?
Yeah, she popped her in the nose. Give her a little boop.
I want to say the only
Love
time we've
tap.
been here before is with Emma.
Is that the only other time? It's just been mentioned a lot.
It's just been
No,
mentioned a
we
few
went there
times.
with Sophia, with
No.
Brian.
Sophia and Brian. That was a different area of town.
Was it?
Was
Yeah.
it
Although
really?
make a note, Alan, for dissecting worm.
So
We should make that the same area of town. That
I
would
was
be
about
good.
to say, I feel like making it all the same mall is a really good
It was
I
they
think
went
that
to
would
a
be really
strip
fun.
mall. They didn't go to a
Regardless, we've been there before.
You're
Right.
They mentioned the
Yeah.
phrase strip mall.
That's not nearly as
I do want to
exciting,
say,
but yeah.
I feel like did we jump past the reason why Taylor's coming here anyway?
I mentioned
Oh,
it
we
briefly,
kinda
but
did.
we
Yeah.
didn't really talk about it.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
with Bryce and Sierra.
yeah, we don't necessarily need too much, but of course, the whole reason she's there is to try to save Bryce.
Bryce,
who
yeah.
is Sierra's brother. According to Sierra, was taken by the merchants after
Yeah.
a very violent attack against a church
Right.
shelter.
Incredibly violent.
And it's one of those moments where, you know, we don't know how bad the ABB was until the very end when they were really desperate and doing terrible things under Bakuta's control. But it never felt like they were this bad. This just feels like monstrous behavior.
Yeah.
The things that Taylor is told that the merchants are doing.
Yeah.
And
Specifically did in the attack on the church too.
Yeah.
Sounds like the kind of
exactly.
guys that would hold down a sick ostrich.
Yeah.
Alan!
What?
That's okay.
I was gonna say it reminds me of some of those scenes in Breaking Bad where you see like the meth heads who are taking the drugs, and like that scene where they're trying to get back the money or from this like meth head couple, and there's a kid there.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my god, like this is like the darkest dark side of this type of person, right? And I feel like the merchants are just that with superpowers.
I was gonna say it's that in plus like Mad Max.
Yeah. That
Right.
plus Witness Me.
Yeah. It's the degeneracy of meth heads with the culture of Mad Max. You know,
the Witness Me.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there was ever a time that felt kind of very like every man for himself zombie apocalypse vibes, it's here at the mall with the merchants. Like that very everyone's just kind of wild and crazy and we're doing what we can to make do, but also like everyone's high, everyone's smashed, everyone's fighting. Like it's just it's a mess. And they all love it. They're all here for it.
Yeah.
It feels like this is where that long list of trigger warnings we put in the description start to kick in. Up until now, we've gotten like bits and pieces. The bullying's pretty bad and traumatic, and Leviathan fight's really bloody and all this kind of stuff. But then now we're sort of getting into the
we're at Burning Man.
It starts to get dark, and it stays dark for a while. But this feels like kind of the diving board into this side of the world, really.
Yeah.
And I'll add in though too, what I love about this in the way that it's written is that when we find out that Bryce is part of the merchants, like he's chosen to be a part of this group, it creates this really fascinating contrast where you're set up to really hate the merchants and just to be like, man, these people just like they're the scum of the earth. They could probably all die, and the town would be a better place, right? Like you have no pity for them. And while that is still true, all of a sudden you have these two characters, Charlotte and Bryce. Charlotte, who is a victim of the merchants, doesn't want to be there, and Bryce, who is choosing to be there, but at the same time, you're like, you just kind of feel bad for this kid. You're like, yeah, the town does suck right now. Your life does suck right now. I get why being with a powerful gang would feel good to an extent.
Right.
And it creates this interesting juxtaposition where now these people you hate, you also just feel really bad for.
Well, I think Taylor says at one point in time, like there's, merchants used to be a small group that was essentially like a homeless encampment, if you will. And now it's exploded. And population wise, she's like, there's gotta be, this is a decent percentage of people from the city. Like I could have passed by any number of these people in, normal pre-Leviathan days, and they were probably just a normal person.
Yeah.
Like statistically, these were normal people. A lot of these people were normal people before.
Not to be too like horrible and dark, but like it reminds me of like child soldier situations where you've watched your whole family die
Yeah.
how could you imagine joining them, but that you do because you have to and you are desensitized to it? Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. When your entire life, your entire family, your entire city has been destroyed and taken away from you, and you feel so powerless, you feel such a lack of control. It makes sense when groups like this form, when people like this form, because okay, so you have no control over anything in your life. You have no power. And yet by joining this group, you have a monopoly on the supplies. You have power. You have a status of being part of a group, being part of something bigger than yourself.
Exactly.
You have a new family because everyone else is in a very similar position as you. Like, it makes sense that these groups form and that they grow so quickly after such a disaster like Leviathan. And it's so like like what you said, Michael, it's really easy to just be upset and be angry until the motivation and you're like, well, it makes sense.
Yep, exactly. Sad.
It is sad. Let me go ahead and read the summaries for the next couple of chapters for the whole.
Yes, please.
So we've got chapter 5. I put disgusting merchants are disgusting. Taylor saves Charlotte from the display case window and is recognized as Locker Girl. Skidmark pits the merchants against each other to fight for superpowers in a can. Chapter 6, Taylor and Lisa find Bryce in the mayhem, but he gets pulled into the ring with the others. Scrub, or Eraser, I like Eraser much better. Scrub triggers, and Taylor and Lisa get a glimpse of the entities. Chapter 7, Fault Line and her crew come in through the roof, cutting off escape routes. Taylor and Lisa and the gang try to leave, grab Bryce, and escape to the parking lot where they can talk, Cauldron with Neuter. I'll stop there. So chapters 5 through 7.
So let's go all the way back.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
It's funny. It's a really slow few chapters, and then everything happens.
Everything happens at once. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to tell the audience, I haven't read. I'm not reading along with, but I have in the past, just like everyone else here. And I don't know why, but I remember this chapter really well. Especially this last part that you just described. It's so interesting.
That is interesting because I don't remember this part at all.
I thought it was fascinating the first time. I think because they're introducing like some new like stuff with how powers can be attained, and I just thought that was very interesting. So,
there's also all of the domestic stuff that's going on.
Yeah,
like I know that this chapter exists, but all of the just kind of day-to-day feel, Taylor running into her dad, drinking tea, but still doing superpower stuff, talking with people face to face. Like all of that is so comfortable and I love it. And then, also the merchants. But this is an arc I don't remember liking as much. And
this has been such a great arc. I've really enjoyed these chapters so much.
In terms of enjoyability, like, obviously we have more hype ones. This arc was my most enjoyable to read.
Yeah, this part really feels like the Mad Max portion, like you're describing as well. Like, funny that you said it, because that's kind of what I was imagining the first time I read it.
Yeah, it's got that vibe to it.
For sure. Yeah. Interesting.
All shiny and chrome.
Lisa was a coward. She should have given them all ecstasy. And I'm really upset we didn't do that.
I forgot about that when it was happening, and I was like, "Wait, did they get high here?"
They got so high.
She's like, "All right, boys, pop the X," and they're like, "Yes,
I love
ma'am."
that she like turns to Taylor and she's like, "Open your mouth," and like puts the thing on her. I was like, "Oh, okay." I don't know why that was so hot, but like, all right, all right.
You've got the brain for it. You've got the brain for it. Just know, in Dissecting Worm, we're going to be running off Vampire Diaries logic from now on, which is anytime there can be shipping, there will be shipping.
There will be shipping. Yep.
It's just an entire show of queer baiting. That's the whole show.
Yes.
That is correct. You've nailed it.
Oh my God.
Nick, you understand.
I do like
why
that
don't you join?
Keep coming back to just Taylor is just secretly attracted to everybody.
Everyone. Well, I mean, everyone's hot.
It's so that we get to enjoy it as the first person,
Exactly.
You know,
Michael gets it.
it started at the beginning of this arc, really, with Coyle being daddy, and it's just like,
Oh,
Mhm.
gosh.
Oh yeah, Pat, you like that?
Oh my gosh, you can't say things like that.
I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna keep saying it.
It's
I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna
so-
use it from now
I'm
on
so
too.
sorry, It's
Oh,
so
boy.
hot. I can't.
Um,
I can't.
Oh,
It
no.
seems like
Oh,
as
boy.
good a time as any, but I had a thought while editing.
Oh, yes.
Because we
please.
talk a lot. We talk a lot about how hot people are and stuff in this. We need to start referring to it as Brockton Babes.
Oh,
my
Do we need to
God.
have a new segment?
Yeah,
Brockton
come
Babes.
on.
We should have the Brockton
A
Bay.
T-shirt. We need the whole shebang.
what? Shouldn't it just be the Brockton
Oh my
Bays, though? I
gosh.
feel like Brockton Bays is better.
Oh, the Brockton
Oh.
Bays.
Oh,
Yeah,
Brockton
I
Bay
was
Book
in my head. I
Club,
was
yeah.
going back and forth between.
Is
those
it our
now.
Brockton Bay Watch?
That's the
Oh my
segment
gosh,
title.
there's
For
so many
sure.
options.
Welcome to the Brockton Bay Watch, the podcast within a
Within a
podcast.
podcast.
Keeping an eye out on all those hotties surfside.
I'm
Now,
here for
this
it.
episode, I'm going to
to.
give out a shout out to special hotties here. I'm going to go with Senegal.
I was gonna
Oh.
say
He's
it's gotta be Senegal.
Yeah.
Isn't he the
It's Senegal.
gross one?
he,
I was about to say, isn't he the
here's
creepy
thing.
one?
Okay,
I like
they say
Minor.
creepy. He's got the like, grab Taylor by the hip, like I'm in charge here, but as soon as she's like back off and Lisa's like, hey, she said back off, like he just instantly changes the mood because it's all in character.
Yeah.
And Lisa even comments like, Brooks wishes that he could pull off what Senegal pulls off.
Ugh. It's so.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Senegal just strikes me as the kind of guy who would unironically use the word toots. And that just
Only
strikes me
if-
the wrong way.
That is the funniest thing I've ever said.
Nick, if the job required it, he would.
He would. It's a commitment to the bit.
I
That's
think
fair,
about
that's
I think about Peacemaker, like where it's like there were a beach full of dicks and I had to suck every one of them for America. I would.
Oh my god.
This is not the Senegal I was remembering reading, but
I don't think this is
That's
anything
great.
like Senegal at all.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
Are we fan casting John Cena as Senegal? Is that
Yeah.
Yes.
Please,
Oh
better
my gosh.
believe.
Just as a cameo.
Oh, that's
It's
funny.
fantastic.
Oh, that would be
That's-
good.
And
Oh,
he
I love
would.
it so much.
He
John
would.
Cena would do it.
It would be great.
There's got to
Oh
be
my
someone
gosh.
out there who's made fan castings of the Wormcast, and I just need to know what everybody's is. Like I need to know for science, of course.
Go ahead and send those in. Also send in recommendations and upcoming arcs for our Brockton
Oh,
Bay
yes.
Watch.
Yeah, for sure.
But Kevin Spacey as Coyle, obviously.
Yeah.
For reasons.
For so many reasons.
Oh, God.
Oh, woof.
No.
You're not
Cut
wrong,
that.
but woof.
So, Brockton Bays or Brockton Babes?
That is a really
That's
tough.
tough. I like Brockton Bays. It just
We can
works
use both
so
and just
well.
call it Baywatch. So
I have to look at it. I think
No.
I
The
have to
Brockton
write it
Bay
down.
Watch is the podcast within the podcast.
But that's
Right, the
But
podcast.
we
Yes.
keep track of our Brockton Bays, which
Okay,
will
it is
also be a
bays.
sweater that Hannah's working on.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm
which
saying.
will just
is we
have
got to go
your
all the way
hotties.
with this for sure.
That's true.
And don't forget to look for our Beefcake calendar.
Okay, so I'm a visual person. I think Brockton Bay written out looks a lot better than Brockton Babes.
I think we're all in agreement. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Huzzah.
All right.
Thank you
This is
for
how-
tuning
This
in
is how we
to our.
decide things.
Yeah, this is-
Yeah, this has been our podcast within a podcast. Tune in next time. Anyway, back to the show.
back to the sex trafficking.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Is it time for an ad break?
We interrupt our scheduled program to bring you a word from our sponsor, Zencastr, a one-stop shop for all your podcasting needs. When we first started this podcast, we knew we needed a service that would let us record remotely. After doing some research, Zencastr was the obvious choice. We started using Zencastr and never looked back. It's super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. All you do is log in, invite people to join your room, and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. You can record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. You can rest easy even if you have an unstable connection, knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality. We do all our recording in Zencastr, And when the episode is ready, we can distribute it to all major podcast platforms. Zencastr has made podcasting so much easier with its all-in-one podcasting platform and tools. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code Brocktonbaybc, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. That's zencastr.com/pricing and use our code Brocktonbaybc. And now back to our scheduled programming.
Do you need to Google search something that you don't want people to know about? Today's episode is sponsored by VPN.
VPN. They'll never find you.
Michael, I'm so sorry for what you have to
All right.
Yeah, this is going to be fun to edit it. So Charlotte's in a window.
Is she in a window? I thought she was on a pedestal. Maybe I just read that wrong.
She's
No, I think
behind
it's-
glass.
Yeah, it's like a glass display. Well, the glass is broken. There's no space.
Oh, right,
between.
right.
It's like
Yeah,
a
but it
former
is like
display
a-
case.
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
display
Okay.
window at the Gap or whatever.
It's like
'Cause she's like
yeah.
up on a thing, and people are like
like if you
around
ever,
her.
well, if you're ever at the mall and you're walking by, like there is a slightly raised platform that the mannequins are all standing in behind the glass. So they're like, I don't know, it's up like a foot or something. It's
Yep.
not like
Sometimes
round, but
taller than others, so yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
poor thing.
I felt like this was like a giant pedestal thing in the middle of like not in a store, but in like the middle of the.
Well, Taylor talks about how
there's
Charlotte
glass
can't
everywhere.
get away because there's glass on the floor, and if she would try to get down from the glass from the window, she would cut her feet because she's barefoot.
Yeah, I remember that part.
Yeah.
Huh.
Either way, not a great place to be.
No, not great at all. And I mean, Lisa even mentions earlier about how or I guess maybe Taylor says it, but the idea of like maybe not everyone here who's on the arm of a big chunky hunky dude wants to be here, and Charlotte is an example of that. Like she does not want to be here. We don't know exactly how she got pulled into this mess, but here she is, and she does not want to be here. She wants to leave, and there's no way she's gonna get away without intervention, from our team of hunky soldiers.
And to add to that, she recognizes Taylor, which means that she's a high school student.
Yes,
Yep.
she is.
Oh, yeah.
Just to add, again, talking about those trigger warnings, just to add
Yeah.
to those, like, oh, shoot. Oh, no, kind of moment where you're like, oh,
Big
no.
Yikes.
Yeah, big yikes. Big yikes for sure.
Yeah. There's two lines she says back to back that just killed me. Number one, you were locker girl.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
And then they had to cart that stuff away in biohazard bags.
So gross.
oh gosh.
Fuck.
That was
More
brutal.
details to Taylor's bullying and
Yeah.
trigger event that we didn't know about, but God, it's awful.
I do like how that whole scene, we get another glimpse again of Taylor being a bit better than her friends and the
Yeah.
Undersiders mostly.
Your superhero is showing.
Yeah.
Exactly. But with that Taylor, and then with just a little bit of prodding, the other our Baywatch group are very quick to jump in and help. Like she pushes back a bit, Lisa does, but also trusts Taylor enough to know, like, I know you're going to want to do this, so let's just make sure we get it done. And
Yeah.
and we're with you there.
Lisa is such a best friend.
Yeah, yeah.
What an absolute bro. Like, damn. She's like, even at one point she, teases her, but it's like, what are we doing? And Lisa's like, I don't know, up to locker girl over there.
Ugh. Which I thought that was interesting that she used locker girl. I was like, okay, all right.
Lisa,
What you do? You razz your friends,
you nut.
you're hanging with your buddies. You just bring up some childhood trauma,
Yeah.
But also, how traumatizing for Charlotte to just be there, already freaking out, already not wanting to be there, and then the biggest dude around fights his
Oh
way
my
through
God.
the group and just grabs you. and is like,
Throws
I'm
you over
taking
his
this
shoulder
one.
like a sack of potatoes.
Yeah, he's like,
I
I'm
mean-
buying
I
this
mean,
one. Throws money in
Yeah.
the
He
air
can
and walks away
He
with
can
you.
throw me over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes.
Yeah, I was about to say, of course, I know there's fan fiction of this out there. Hannah's already written it. You can go find it under
Don't you
Big
dare.
Daddy Potato on Wattpad.
Jesus.
Okay. Now, since we're slightly off track again, I feel like Lisa should be played by like Anya Taylor-Joy.
Oh, I like
Oh my
that.
God! What
She
an
will be
excellent
too
fan
old
cast.
by the time,
Well,
but
by
I
the
time we
agree.
make this,
You're
but yes.
100% right.
Oh,
That is a great
that's
casting.
a great cast choice.
Now, by the time we get around to this, all the undersiders will be like, unknown.
We need to.
first-timers.
Here's the thing: we need to be scouting out children right now.
No,
we need to go to the
okay,
Disney
well,
Channel.
yeah.
We need to watch
No,
the
no.
young kids. Look at them
Let's,
small.
Okay,
Maybe
that's
let's not
creepy.
talk about scouting
That's
That's how you
children
get
in this
canceled
Alan.
so
In
quick.
the context of
Yes,
somebody
yes.
buying a high school girl, maybe scouting out the
fuck.
kids is not.
Yeah,
that's
maybe
what
cut
I
that
see
shit
no
out.
connection.
Cut-
What's your
cut
point,
that-
Nick?
maybe cut that one out, Michael.
That's what pops up 10 years from now in like the YouTube recap.
Yeah, no, I don't
How
need.
did-
I don't need
How
like
have we
weird.
not canceled Alan yet?
in the H bomber
Back
guy
up.
video about Alan.
Yeah.
Oh Jesus! I don't
Okay.
need that association, please. I have places to go. I don't need Alan dragging me down.
No, but there's I like that. I like that that fan cast. That's good. Should nail it. If we could make this 5 years ago, it'd be amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we get maybe the most, for me, the most interesting part of these few chapters is the
They
mosh pit.
compare.
Yeah.
I was gonna say when they compare Mush to Gollum,
Ugh, gross.
not Gollum, Worm Gollum, Gollum, Lord of the Rings Gollum.
What? I
Hey,
don't
Lord of the
remember
Rings
that.
in this universe, baby.
That's exciting.
Yeah, they say he looks like this kind of weirdly proportioned, very
Greasy.
fleshy, greasy fantasy
Mhm.
character from some fictional novel,
yeah.
some fantasy novel that people are really into. I'm like, okay, I see you. I got you.
I got you,
Copyright.
wild bow.
Uh-huh.
I got you.
In my mind, it's the one cosplayer. I forget her name, but she does the intentionally really bad cosplays. She did one of she does one of Gollum, and just like her and like half body paint with like a shower cap and like goggles, and like it just looks is really hideous.
But
So bad.
it maybe didn't nail the look, but nailed the vibe, I guess.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. That was my mental image for this. Yeah. No, but then we get to the main event of the evening. The whole point of the merchants' little get together,
Yeah.
which is Skidmark's free for all. Have we met? I was trying to remember when reading this. Had we met Skidmark yet before this?
We've
Yes.
run into Skidmark before.
Okay.
I don't feel like we've interacted with him too much.
We made him sit at the booth.
Yeah,
Oh,
he was
that's
in the
right,
in the
in
villain
the-
meeting.
Yes,
Oh,
at the
okay.
bar.
And when Nick's favorite character told him to sit over there.
Excuse you, sir.
Never gonna live it down.
I'm sorry, Nick. Too soon. R.I.P. Kaiser. Shout out.
We have interacted with him a little bit, but
Okay.
I feel like I didn't necessarily remember what his powers were, and so to see them here in action was like a lot more like memorable in my mind now, because I feel like I'm always playing this game of like, okay, we've mentioned a cape, like shit, fuck, I can't remember what they do. Like, okay, I guess I'll have
So
to
there's
figure it out.
some powers that I require double checking with. And this is one of those as I read them, because I have a very difficult time with abstract concepts. And as we all know, Worm is kind of full of those. Is his power essentially Hot Wheels boosters?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's
Where,
what it feels
like-
like. It feels like, like when you have one of those like little cars and you pull it back and it shoots forward. Like I feel
Well,
like it's that.
It's
Yeah,
Sorry,
well, if you've
Boost.
ever had Hot Wheels, which apparently Hannah hasn't,
I have.
you've got the two wheels that spin, and when the car comes into those, it hits that and it launches.
on the track.
Yeah,
The
so
Hot
Wheels
Wheels
boosters.
tracks. Okay, yeah, don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
It's not the cars, it's the freaking track.
Yeah, the
I
boost.
had Hot Wheels, bitch.
Uh-huh.
I had
Okay.
the case that held them all. Thank you very much.
You guys see the guy that made the particle accelerator with Hot Wheels tracks?
I did. Not
I did not, but
I'll save
What?
that. I'm not going to go off track again, but
Oh my
remind me
God.
afterwards.
Off the Hot Wheels track.
gotcha.
Who are we talking about? Sorry.
Skid marks.
We're talking about
Skid marks.
Skid
Yeah,
mark.
Mark.
I'm pretty sure, at least from what I gathered, he has like the circle or whatever, and if you get close enough to the line, which has a slight draw to it,
Mm-hmm.
it launches you out the other side. And then once you're in at that side, because it's still launching one direction, you essentially can't go to it.
It's
Like,
a
it's always gonna be
deflector
pushing
force
against it.
field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. It's so a one-way door.
Which I imagine that if you layered like a bunch of those lines in front of each other, you could essentially like toss a rock in and probably launch it at bullet-like
Zip, zip, zip,
speed.
zip, zip, zip.
Yeah.
It does say you can exponentially increase any force put into it.
Okay.
Oh
Wow.
gosh.
I may be wrong, but that is the impression I got, and I was just kind of double checking it out.
It's a one-way like gust of wind type idea. So yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got one of those powers that are really fun to sort of think about the applications for.
Yeah, but he's too stupid to use it
Well,
for anything.
He can
Decent.
create it and dissipate it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we talked
Yeah.
about the area of effect, but he can like dissipate it.
Yeah, looking at what it said, basically, he can create them, but he can only dissipate them. He can't move them once he's created them. Yeah, and the idea is that, actually, according to one comment by Wildbow on Reddit, I found this on the
Oh.
Worm Wiki,
Bless.
in the hands of someone more clever, equipped, or practiced, Skidmark's power could have repeatedly knocked Leviathan or Behemoth on their asses. There's a lot you can do with a general I create treadmill fields and can stack the effect to increase the push and drag.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
he was an idiot. And unfortunately, that is how he will be remembered.
Oh.
Yeah.
I love that
Bless.
so much. I love that Wildbow's just not afraid to say like
He got in there.
I mean, yeah, if you give
Bless
the smooth brain unlimited power, he's probably just gonna
Still
like
smooth brain.
yeah.
Regardless
I
of how powerful the power is, it's still the wielder. It's what you
Exactly.
do with it.
Yeah.
With
Skill
great
issue.
power comes great responsibility.
Yeah. In here I have God, fuck you, Bryce. Because like his whole whining thing is like, oh man, made me do chores because we were in survival mode.
God,
and
what a
man, that was
fucking
so
dick.
boring.
Poor
I'm
baby.
I get it. Don't get me wrong. I get bored easily. But also like
Half the city is
you
flooded.
little bitch.
For real.
And then followed up
Gosh.
by fuck, I love Lisa. What a bro.
But I love the realization, and I think it's Taylor that has it. I don't think Lisa.
Mhm.
I think it's Taylor that says it, where
Yeah.
she realizes that Skidmark is trying to trigger people.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
trying to
Create
get
a-
somebody to trigger,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is horrifying.
Like, can we talk about some powers since we're triggering here? Because there's something that Lisa talks about way back in chapter 4. And then we'll bring that into the larger discussion of powers here. But Lisa getting kind of a feel out for Taylor's powers and Taylor talking about it, talks about the idea, getting in the headspace of your powers. The closer you get there, the stronger they become. And we've had moments where Taylor's been like, hey, my powers are stronger this day. I wonder why that is, especially since I've either been directly encountering my bullies or handling Leviathan, which is like the biggest bully in the world. But she talks about this Pavlovian response to those situations where like you get stronger in those situations. And because of that, because that feels kind of good to be stronger, you tend to put yourself in those situations more and more.
Mm.
And for Taylor, talked about like bullying is kind of the big one. Bullying and trapped like corners, if you will. These impossible situations where she's trapped sort of like in a locker. And she puts herself in those unintentionally, but that gains her more power And it kind of feeds off itself, where Taylor likes to be the victim or the underdog and puts herself in the middle of chaotic situations because that's where she thrives.
That's good insight. I like that.
And, that's just Taylor as the example, but also look at other heroes. And it makes me wonder, like Armsmaster kind of puts himself in these one-on-one situations with people. He puts himself, against the undersiders, and then, eventually Taylor, like he didn't have to 1v1 that, but he kind of does put himself there, and he does the same thing for fighting against Leviathan. Like he has all these moments where he has to do it himself, kind of. And I wonder what that says about his trigger event, and that he subtly leans towards these situations where it's always him versus everyone, kind of.
Interesting.
But following that up to, we have a trigger. We have a full-on trigger. This is the first trigger we have seen in the present full on.
And damn, do we get some world building.
Holy shit.
Woo!
I forgot about this reading it again. But what a fun read. I was just, I listened to the audiobook when I'm going to and from work every day. I walk to work. And I was like, when I got to this part, I just started slowed down a bit and was just walking really slowly as I was listening to this part again, because I completely forgot.
I love that.
How Wildbow sort of introduced this, and like the visions, and not just Lisa and Taylor, but Skidmark and like anybody else, any other cape in the vicinity sort of got hit when somebody
They're
else
like
triggered.
babies. They're like gods. It's on the tip of my tongue.
God damn. We've talked before with Hannah, Lady Miss Militia. I was gonna call her Lady Militia, Miss Militia, where she has these dreams, and we've kind of mentioned it before. But like this full on, moment, and specifically with Lisa, like her power connecting the dots and making those connections, and I'm just wondering, how much does she remember? Because Taylor immediately forgets. And it's like, weird, like, I was just thinking about something. It doesn't matter, moving on. But like, because of Lisa's power, the way it is, the connecting the dots, like, how much of it does she remember? And how much does she learn every time she's around someone with a trigger event? That like piecing her power, just piecing more and more of it together.
We've kind of also dealt with this in terms of the stranger power with Imp, where Imp's ability is to have you forget her actively.
Right.
And but Lisa's able to kind of parse out that there is somebody with powers, on her side. Or at least that's, kind of assumed from Taylor's point of view when they're fighting at the PRT building. And in this, when she's talking about it's on the tip of my tongue, I'm trying to figure it out. I like the idea that her power is racing against whatever this event is, and it's outpacing her power, kind of, where she's able to build connections, but it keeps, as fast as she builds the connections, it's pulling all of the stuff behind her away. It's just an interesting idea of not being able to put this together.
I was reminded of her interlude during Leviathan, where because she talks about how sometimes her power will just start going and she has to like reel it back in before she goes off and goes down a rabbit hole. How like she's just cycling through Leviathan as a creature, and she hits that like never was human bit, and it's sort of like it's kind of this weird moment where she gets an interesting realization about a character that nobody else can get. And you just kind of wonder what her interlude would have been for this bit if we could see that and read that rabbit hole. And just like how deep did she go? Because she's clearly like wiped.
The depths of that mind palace.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So cool.
I want to say too, I think it's interesting how, although it's subtle, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm 99% sure only people with powers were affected by the trigger event.
Correct.
Yes.
Which is what
Yes.
outs Taylor to Charlotte.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and it kind of reveals that there is some connection between all of these characters that have powers. We don't know what it is, but this trigger event kind of shows because we see Skidmark, waking up from his reaction, the other villains on his side kind of struggling to get up afterwards. So clearly, yeah, a trigger event does affect people who have powers as well. And I just thought that was a really interesting and subtle way to show all these people with powers, heroes, villains, whoever they are, they're all connected by something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wonder. So maybe this is I don't think this gets mentioned ever again. Maybe this is just a slight oversight on Wildbow's part. I'd hate to say it, but I'm gonna throw it out there because I guess it depends on when it happened. But do you think Shadowstalker felt Taylor trigger?
Oh man.
Oh,
That's a good point.
That is really good. Oh shit. Okay.
Well, we
And
don't know
Mr.
how
Gladly.
close she was.
I was about to say,
Right.
and we don't know when Shadowstalker triggered. Like, when did Shadowstalker have her trigger?
Well, she triggered that summer
Yeah,
before.
she triggered
That's
the
how
summer
her-
before.
Okay.
I think though
Yeah.
it sounds like Taylor didn't trigger immediately. So it's very possible that they shoved her in the locker and then ran away quickly to try to get away
That's
from
what I assumed.
Right.
from
Yeah.
the evidence that they were part of it, right? So my assumption would be that's a big part of why she wouldn't know. It also might have to do with the strength of the trigger event. Not saying that Taylor's wasn't super strong, but this particular trigger event seems a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just due to the particular circumstances. So
It's also possible that maybe she did feel it, but had just no idea what that meant. She just got a bad headache and a little
And if
vision
she
because
did-
she would have forgotten about it.
Exactly. She would have forgotten immediately.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have
Mhm.
mattered even if she had, like, in that split second realized that, like, oh, someone's triggering. Like, she would have forgotten so quickly afterwards that it wouldn't have even.
That's right. She would have forgotten. Never mind. My apologies, Wildbow. Not an oversight because she would have forgotten. So
Well, I don't think they
No,
forget what just happened. They just forget the vision of the extra stuff. Like they
true.
still have something happened to me. Something
Right.
like there was a trigger. You just don't remember what happened during that blackout period.
Interesting. And then, well, yeah. Sorry. This is got to reel in the spoilers here.
Yeah.
It's like about to say things and then I don't. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
Cut that.
But this fight, all of a sudden people are kind of turning on their group, and you've got the two gals in the middle
This
and the four
mosh
guys
pit.
on the outside.
Oh,
I love this fight because Taylor goes and does a new power upgrade where she's got the bugs on everyone, and she closes her eyes and starts blind fighting with
Ugh.
two knives.
So cool. So cool.
great scene.
So good.
What a badass. Just,
What
I
a
can-
badass.
In my
indeed.
head, it's the Extraction 2 with
Ooh.
Chris Hemsworth,
Yes.
like during the prison riot scene.
yes.
Mm.
Yep.
Except she gets knocked down. It's the moment where he stands up and he's kind of dazed, but it's
Mm-hmm.
Taylor standing up, just closing the eyes, and then just starts stabbing people.
So
Oh.
we're gonna do a slight deviation to Dissecting Worm here, Alan. Welcome.
Ugh.
So
Yeah,
in
welcome
this-
to the Dissecting Worm. We've slipped in. We've snuck in. What a couple of sneaky boys are
Yeah. In this scene, right? So we're on the same page. I'm hoping here. Closes her eyes, all the sounds and everything fade, and we just hear the buzzing, and we just use
Ah.
buzzing and cues from insects as where people are, and we use that to direct all of her action and movements.
Yeah, we get a little bit of that Spidey sense
yeah
from Spider-Man Far From Home. You know, where he's in the dark and there's kind of like nothing there in the hallway.
Yes. Oh, exactly. Oh, I love it.
That is so cool.
I love that
Just
moment.
a taste, guys, for what's to come. Please
just
listen
a
to the
tease.
next.
You should go check it. Once you're done, once you've read Worm, or if you've already read Worm and are okay with spoilers, head on over to our sister podcast, Dissecting Worm, where we, work on the movie/television portion.
Exactly what you just heard.
Exactly. More of that. If you enjoyed that, there you go. That's our ad break.
All right, back to
sponsored by
the Brockton Bay Book Club.
Worm.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, blind fighting, and then she literally she finally opens her eyes at one point and is like, "Whoop, that was a bad idea," and gets like vertigo.
Yeah.
And then also, I guess this is kind of kind of going into the next chapter too. But or I guess we're in the same chapter. I lost track of where we are. But I also
we
love
have
the
done
image.
everything but the last one.
Okay, yeah, I love the image too of her just sensing her bugs collapsing on the roof and immediately knowing why because of how they collapse. Like she understands what they touch, and she's just like, Neuter's here. Like it's such a great
Also,
moment.
He's so cool. Drops down and does the palm touch. Just boop, falls over.
So good.
Instant KO.
So good. I love it so much. Just I love Neuter. Neuter's one of my favorites. And just that just little boopsies. Just boop. It is so good. So good.
Great character.
Yeah. I love the image too of all of the, the maze walls just coming in and like forging up out of the ground, and I love the statues too, because I always forget about that element with these basically Taylor mentions that the whole mall feels like it's been turned into a temple, and I love that imagery of like there's vines and there's all this stone and there are these beautiful statues that are just kind of like with their arms uplifted, and it's like so all of a sudden this very Mad Max decimated mall has been turned into this what feels like a temple, and that is so cool. I love that so much, that shift, and like seeing the merchants slowly being picked off. And I think Taylor even says it at one point where Skidmark slowly realizes that like he is fighting a losing battle. His other leaders in arms or whatever have fallen. It is like this is not the entire tone has shifted, and this is not going to end well for you. It's such a good segment.
Yeah.
Just visually.
Hard agree.
Oh, man. Let's see. Neuter's awesome.
We get introduced to Shamrock as well as a new hero.
Yeah.
we do.
We don't say her name, but
they do later.
Shamrock
later.
has my favorite power of all time, which is just luck.
Yeah.
Everything goes your way.
Who is
I
it?
was going to say
Domino?
Neuter does mention
Domino,
it.
long
Chapter 7.
shot.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of other universes. Those are all Marvel characters.
Right.
It's just, it's the satisfying.
What's the Harry Potter potion?
Oh, God. Wait, hold on.
It's golden.
I thought we're nerds.
I know. I've said it myself. It's like, it's Latin.
It starts with an F. I know that.
Felix Felicis.
Felix Felicis. Felix Felicis?
Felix Felicis? That sounds right.
I'm going to look it up.
Too many S's for me.
Felicis.
Yes.
Well, there's ironically only one S in the name of the potion.
Felicis.
Feliz Navidades.
Exactly.
Liquid luck. Liquid luck.
Yes,
Liquid luck. We'll go with the easy name. Yeah, no, fun power for sure. Just being lucky. Yeah, a lot of fun powers to come.
One of my favorite bits is Fault Line does this thing. Of course, Fault Line showing up, I assume in the battle skirt with the welding mask and everything.
Yes.
Naturally.
Shows up and like is fighting this one dude, and he goes to like shoot her, and she, she's got her slicey power that makes things fall apart, and she takes her feet and slides them both to the side, and it cuts the floor open underneath her, and she drops. Holy cow. That's like the Kate Beckinsdale,
Oh yeah.
underworld shooting, but just it's so cool. I had to read that section over again 2 or 3 times just because I was like, did she just slice the floor open? But the gesture was with her feet.
Yeah.
And that's 100% what happened.
And then popped up somewhere else too. Like, I love that. And the guy like looks down into the hole after her, like, oh, where'd she go? And she boop bops him and he goes right into the hole. Like,
yeah.
So cool.
It's so hard not wanting to like, it's like where it's one of those stories where you understand why fan fiction is so popular for Worm, because like I want a whole story just following Fault Line's crew, or a whole story, just like it's easy to see why there's these characters are so well written, so much fun to read. But they make their escape.
They do make their escape. Oh, right before they make their escape though, the explosion of papers as Skidmark does finally go down, and the briefcase kind of launches papers all over the air. And Taylor, I love that she doesn't necessarily grab the papers with her bugs, but she uses the air currents and the bugs kind of like help guide the papers down, so it's not super obvious that like, yes, there are suddenly bugs flying away with pieces of paper. But like she makes it a little bit less obvious so that they can get a couple of pages. They get like what, 4 or 6 pages?
Something like that.
Before they make their escape. But I love that because she's still being conscious of the fact that, she's not in her costume here. She's still as, dressed as Taylor and like trying to remain in some semblance, undercover. But, there's only so much you can do. Bug girl.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I do love that Taylor has, now kind of outed herself by the end of the chapter to a fair amount of people.
Yeah.
Goodness. We are just revealing identities left and right. Goodness.
Taylor.
Which, I'm cool with. I feel you.
I don't know. I feel like it feels like a real power play, like a real power move for Taylor to be like, yeah. Because if she's revealing her, secret identity, even if it is to just a couple of people, that's in a weird way like combining her true identity and her secret identity, merging them more and more into one. And like the line has become slightly blurred. And like the more people that find out, the more blurred that line will become.
No, I think that's spot on. I was thinking the same exact thing where Taylor's starting to have her, I think we mentioned this before, having her like Batman moment where in the comics,
that's what I was thinking.
To the point where there is no difference between Batman and Bruce Wayne. And in fact, he sees himself as Batman first when Bruce Wayne is a secret identity,
Right.
And it feels like Taylor's starting to sort of cross into that territory where Skidder is her true self, is her persona.
Exactly.
And it makes sense too, because other than her dad, other than Danny, she does not have much tied to her identity as Taylor, really. Like Danny and her past with the bullies that she probably wants to avoid. But like that's about it. She's not protecting too much beyond that. So it seems like it's probably not that big of a deal for some of these people that aren't going to make those connections, or no, she's not worried about making those connections to see her.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
And in a weird way too, the way of life has shifted. Like she's not going to school anymore. Half the city is disrupted. I'm sure plenty of people have died or left the city altogether. And so like the idea of, yes, I have to hide the Skidder side of me as I go to school or I, interact with my dad, like none of that really exists anymore. And so that feeling of, I have to hide this secret identity. Like, well, everything's kind of a shit show right now. So like, if we find out that you're a superhero, like, well, or a super villain, really, like, well, I mean, okay, Leviathan did blow up half the city or drown half the city. So sure. Okay.
Plus, is to make another DC reference, it's very much like when Lex Luthor is controlling or has taken over the mind of the Flash. And he's like, I don't know what to do, but at least I can figure out who the secret identity is. And he takes off his mask and he's like, I don't know.
I have
don't
no
know
idea who this is.
Very much the same
That
thing.
is funny. Yeah.
Who's gonna see Taylor walking around and be like, aha?
Well, she's always so
face.
worried because of like, yes, if someone sees my height and build and the way I walk, they're gonna figure it out. It's like you live in a giant city with a ton of people. Like, unless someone is incredibly observant or interacts with you often on a daily basis, like people aren't gonna figure that out. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. I think that brings us to the final chapter, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I mean, we should maybe mention briefly the papers and
Cole. Oh, yes, you're right. You're right.
They sell a lot of things on here.
There is quite a bit of information on those papers. Wow. Okay.
Break it down.
Yeah. So there's a whole bill of sale and instructions and all these things about like
client 1 and 2 and client 1 through 6.
Basically. Yeah, if you buy these, essentially you know there's money involved, but also
6 figures to be exact.
Yeah, 6 figures. You also owe which 6 figures, as much as that is for superpowers, it's not a lot, which raises a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that, they talk about is like, we don't know who these were originally intended for, so these got yoinked. These were not meant for the merchants, obviously. But you've also got to do this organization. I think they said it's Cauldron.
Yeah, they mentioned that it's Cauldron.
You've got to do them one favor, essentially. If you don't, you owe them a favor essentially. And there's talk about I think they talk about the Nemesis program as well.
Yes, they do mention the Nemesis program.
Which is specifically for case 53s that you can buy into. So this isn't something put into you. This is something put into case 53s. And the reason I'm going to talk about it is because it's not something mentioned in the story. It's something Wildbow talks about somewhere, probably on Space Battles, which is a web forum which he talked.
So no spoilers then.
So this is not a spoilers for anything in the story. But the Nemesis program, from what I remember, is a case 53 like Neuter or Gregor, when they're released, have a brainwash trigger phrase that if you say it, they will lose the fight. So if you're fighting one of these very monstrous, superpowered beings, and you've bought these superpowers and you've bought the bonus package, you run into one of these guys, you go, I can use the code word and I'll look like an even better hero for taking one of these guys down pretty easy.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
I think that's how I remember.
What's the other word that Neuter uses to describe them? Not case 53s, but
there's another word here. He says, here, I've got the chapter up in front of me.
Hunting down, what are they called?
Deviations.
Deviations. There we go.
Yeah. He says and subject. So he says, so Lisa's talking about it. She says, there's a whole enterprise here with a private army. There's a bit that politely notes, blah, blah, blah. The Cauldron will not accept bribes, and these subjects are apparently something different from deviations. And then a voice says above them, Cauldron calls us subjects. The PRT calls us case 53s. Regular people call us monsters.
Okay, gotcha. That's what I was thinking of, yeah. Yeah.
Is Space Battles one of his works, Alan?
No, Space Battles is a web forum that he commonly used.
Isn't it kind of like Reddit?
Talk.
Yeah, because I found your article. So yes, if anyone's interested, type in case 53 Space Battles.
I want to say he also used to run worm like role playing forums as well, where he would be like, hey, I'm doing a worm thing. And whatever he ran, he'd be like, hey, first 5 people to respond are in. and then he'd run something at some random. I think one of them was like a PRT base in Alaska, so very
That is
rural,
cool.
very disconnected. But whatever he ran was canon to the universe.
Oh my
That was
gosh.
fun.
What?
That
So-
is cool.
Ultra nerd stuff. I love it.
So some ultra nerd stuff. There's some
That's why you
interesting.
join our podcast, guys. That's
Yeah.
why
You
you
find
tune
out
in.
about all the fun things.
Yeah, which
Alan
what
knows.
a time to be alive back in those days.
Oh.
Wow. Okay. All right. Cool. So that's where you can find it. Space Battles, Case 53. There's a bunch of stuff about
Yeah.
ancillary stuff, basically.
And if you the best thing that I we use Space Battles for is some brilliant man named Steam Rick, with helps from WKZ,
What is
Low Register, and
happening?
Lord Cersei, did links
Shout out, my
and
boy.
summaries for all of the chapters in the entire Worm saga. So,
Okay.
if you're like, man, I know I stopped halfway through. Where am I? You can start at 1 and kind of peruse down without spoiling it for
I
yourself.
might need to do that.
That is
Um,
very smart.
It gives you a really good way to catch up, to quickly find stuff, and they're all linked. So if you're like, find your one, you can click on it. Takes you right to the WordPress site where you can start reading.
And where can you find this?
Space Battles. Type in Space Battles
Right.
Worm chapter synopsis,
Okay.
and that will pop up.
Not me having just read the chapters, needing summaries the day of
Yeah.
the podcast.
That's very something we could have used, probably.
That one might have been very helpful.
That's awesome. All
when
right.
I'm writing my summaries.
Carry
Noted
on.
for the future.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Alan, for your nerdiness, your nerdum.
I knew that autism would come in helpful somewhere.
Yeah, but to bring it back, I think we were talking about why this chapter was so fun to read, or why these chapters are so fun to read. I think a lot of that is because it feels like we're starting to get a lot of answers to questions. Not
Mhm.
necessarily questions we were like, oh, I need them to answer this, but just like sort of background world building questions that sort of are really helping to tie the
Yeah.
world together a bit.
Yes.
Which is really satisfying to read, and helps kind of keep the plot moving. Because
Mhm.
obviously Taylor's story is engaging and fun, and we're having a lot of fun with her as a character. But but the world itself having a thread there to read with as well, and sort of starting to piece together. I mean, we kind of mentioned it before, but like powers just bloomed in the late 80s.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
it was a normal world before then, and then boom, powers
Right.
everywhere, and like we don't know why. So getting bits of that, getting bits of this cauldron storyline as well, that seems pretty detailed. It's really fun. It's just, I don't know how else to describe it, except this is part of what has just made me fall in love with Worm so much. It's just such a fun world to read.
Yeah.
And on the last chapter, unless we got something else for
Yeah. So for the last chapter of this bit, chapter 8, Taylor and the gang get stitched up by the good doc, and Taylor recruits Charlotte and Sierra, leaving Bryce in Tattletale's care. And then they head back to Taylor's lair, and Gru and Brian and Taylor talk, and we kind of see a glimmer of redemption for their friendship, and possibly hope that they could be friends again.
Yeah, I was really grateful for that little moment between them.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to skip to the end of the end, but I
that's
really
fine.
did like
That's
that
fine.
moment
for it.
between them,
Yeah.
of them just getting back to the point of like, okay, we can be friends again.
Yeah.
I like that he's like, we got to, obviously there's a lot to work on, but I want to work on it. So this is nice.
Yeah. Like he even says something about how like I saw potential for us to be best friends. And I love that, because it's not just friends, but like they really clicked, they really connected, like them sparring together, them talking about stuff, and just like existing in the same space. Like I really enjoyed that camaraderie, and I want that back. I miss it. I feel bad that Skitter doesn't have that. And like she does operate really well on her own, but having Brian is just, I love Brian. Lisa's fantastic, but Brian is like a different type of friend, and I'm very much wanting that to be renewed and back to normal, whatever
Yeah.
normal might be.
Yeah. I do think he's a little like, he's like, gosh, in terms of managing your territory, you are smoking us.
Yeah, jeez.
And maybe that's something that she's uniquely suited for given her power and personality.
Yeah.
But, he's smoking him like a Christmas ham. And he's like, you don't have to go this hard to prove yourself to me. And I'm just like, all right, bitch, please.
Yeah,
like,
come on. This isn't about you.
I was drinking tea all morning and, outing all of the merchants in my area. Like, I'm not even trying. Don't make this about you, Brian.
I've been drinking green tea all day.
Sometimes it's not about you, Brian.
Yes. It's also cool because it like starts with her being aware of how alone she is, and it kind of ends with this little hope.
Yeah.
I know she's got 2 people in the house. She's got
2 little minions.
She got friends coming over.
Things are getting better with Brian. I love
Things
it.
are getting better. What a way to end this chapter. I feel like everything just might work out.
No.
And she was 2 days from retirement.
Don't even say it.
It's funny you say that because it really does. It's a really positive end to a rather dark set of chapters.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It is. There's some sunlight here, which is a nice contrast for sure.
Yeah. I do really, really appreciate. And we talked earlier about the flow of conversation and how Wild Bow writes very realistic conversation here with clear beats, but also like we feel the awkwardness of like Taylor talking with Charlotte and then talking with Sierra, like that kind of the sinking feeling that Charlotte's getting of like, oh my gosh, like you're a villain and I know who you are. And and Taylor's like, I can't just let you go. Like, oh boy, oh boy, like 2 teenagers talking to each other, but one is clearly like the powerful one here. Like that interaction just, ooh, it was good.
Yeah.
I liked that a lot. I feel like Taylor could have gone harder. Just been like, yeah, I might have to just kill you. Like
it's funny though, because she's like, look, Charlotte, listen, I'm kind of new to this whole villain thing. So forgive me if I'm improvising. And I feel like that would be the last thing you'd want a villain to say to you. To be like, wait, you're telling me you're a supervillain with powers controlling this big territory, but you're new at this?
Yeah.
Like, please.
I'm new in town.
That's what I was gonna say. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think something I was with all of this of like, well, villains needed to figure out what they're doing with their lives and with their people. With Bryce and kind of this idea of like splitting Bryce and Sierra up and having Bryce be with Tattletale and Sierra come with Skitter. I really feel like that. I feel like that dynamic is like was a really smart move of like giving Bryce the space to kind of like figure out stuff on his own, which is what he wanted. And Sierra still has access to him, but is able to like be taken care of and be okay and know that he's being taken care of and is maybe getting a little bit more of that structure that he needs.
Yeah. Especially since, Bryce just has a thumb now.
Right. Jeez Louise. Golly.
Just a potato with a little wiggler.
No. God damn, Alan. It's not
that is one way to put that.
Okay.
That is definitely one of the ways to put that.
One of the ways.
One of the most ways you can put something.
Of all the ways, that is one of them. All right. Well, I think that about wraps up our conversation on these chapters.
Hey, we got the doctor. Got a name. Dr. Q. Not much of a name, but he's got one.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's something.
All right.
All right. That's my last one.
Yeah,
from
nothing.
From the letters you're talking about?
What?
What are you talking about?
The doctor that's
The
patching them
doctor.
all up. He's never had a name before, and now he's officially Dr. Q. Maybe next time we'll get a last initial, so he'll be like QR or something.
QJ.
Cool. Got it.
But yeah, we don't have any interludes for this section because all of the next section, all of the rest of Arc 11 is interludes. The next 8 chapters. So
excited.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun.
I can't wait. I can't wait. If I haven't said it before, I'll say it again. I am very excited. I love this section. I'm very excited.
It certainly
this
is
really
something.
gets into the it certainly is something. No, it's gonna be a good time. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
Once again, it's one of the sections of all time.
But anyway, so the next episode will be the remainder of Arc 11, which are chapters. They're lettered for the remainder, so it's letters A through H. Next 8 chapters will be the interludes. That's going to be what we're looking over and discussing on the next episode.
What do we got left? We got some favorite powers.
Yeah, not a lot
favorite
here.
New
but,
powers. Favorite new powers.
Not a
So
lot
many
here.
new powers.
Not a lot here.
Well, okay, fair enough. I'm sorry.
I think Fault Line's crew would like to have a word with you.
Yeah.
That's fair. All right, go ahead. Favorite powers.
Oh no, you first, please.
No, Alan, go.
I don't know. After you.
No, of course.
Well, okay. I mean, I'll give my favorite power. It's because if I had to pick one, I do really like Scrub's power. It screams like this is crazy dangerous in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to use it, and it's going to be interesting to see how he develops his power, because instantly obliterating anything it touches
Woof.
sort
is
of the
crazy.
opposite of the dynamic with Skidmark and his power, where like if a more competent person had it, it would be actually dangerous, but because it's him, it's
it's like like how a baby snake is more deadly than the parent, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't know how to
in this
control its
case,
venom.
Scrub is just blasting off. He's popping off left and right.
Yeah.
And that that's way more dangerous than somebody who had a controlled use of this power.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
That's my submission.
That's a good one. It's a good one.
Mine, of course, would be Fault Line.
It's fair.
We finally get to see her in action, and though it's brief, it's super badass.
It is.
So, the foot slide to open the floor, slice and open the floors, breaking shit, really cool. I get now when Gregor's like, "Hey, remember that one time you dropped a building?" And she was like, "It was luck." No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
I like really seeing the fuller extent of Labyrinth's power here. We didn't
say
talk
that.
much about it. Was that what you were gonna say? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll let you expand on it then. But just seeing the more full extent of it, the idea of like a temple, it looking like a temple to a god, and just the way it's described so beautifully, is like, yeah, this is really wild, and it's kind of weirdly fun. The fact that she's a little out of her head, maybe.
Yep.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I'm a slut for aesthetics and vibes, and I feel like Labyrinth's the whole aesthetic of the temple and the statuary is just so visually appealing. It's just I'm such a sucker for it. So I really love that, and I think you're absolutely right. The fact that she's a little not all there in the head makes it even more like mysterious and very kind of like stepping through a portal, stepping through the wardrobe kind of vibes of like converting this very, like we said, Mad Max mall falling apart grossness to like this gorgeous temple. I love that imagery so much. But, if I had to pick somebody else, also Shamrock.
Very nice.
All right. Am I missing anything? Any other segments that we have?
I was going to say, I want to know what Michael's is.
Oh, my apologies.
I was debating if I should really say, because I'm not reading along, but just from remembering, I do like
vibes.
I do like skid marks a lot from what you guys, mostly just the research I just did as to how cool the power could be.
Right.
Yeah.
Give it to somebody good.
Yeah, it could be
Yeah.
really, really cool. So it's very
That's
interesting.
fair. Yeah, there's a lot of fun with those. There's a few times where Wildbow's talked kind of offline about powers that he's written that were like, I don't know, maybe this could have, ended the universe. It's like, what?
Mhm.
That
I
kind
love
of thing.
his community interaction so
Yeah,
much.
really fun.
So good.
Wildbow, please join us.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's
Little
like
plug.
one of my favorite things about Worm is that because it's so weirdly not abstract, but it's so weirdly niche that like if you find somebody that is familiar with Worm, like you're gonna nerd out about it together because it's so we're such a good community. Oh,
It's
Speaking
very
of
fun.
community and nerding out, please reach out to us on our social medias. Let us
Hey.
know what your favorite powers were. Let us know
Mhm.
what your thoughts are on this chapter. A lot of world building, a lot of really dark imagery and moments to work through. Weren't lying with those trigger warnings. They hit pretty hard sometimes. So be aware of that moving forward. If you're kind of letting your guard
especially
down.
moving forward.
Yeah.
That's Brockton
Yeah.
Bay, Brockton, BC.
Brockton Bay BC on
Brockton Bay
all
BC.
platforms.
There you
Brockton
go.
Bay, BC.
And
on
the
all
link is in
platforms.
the description.
And we do love
Thank you,
interacting with
Michael.
people. We're a bunch of nerds here. We love nothing more than nerding out with people that nerd in the same nerd.
Yeah, come be
Nerd
nerds
rings.
with us.
Yeah.
Come be nerds with us.
If you haven't gotten that vibe yet, I don't know how you're still here.
We give off we made a whole podcast just so we had an excuse
Yeah.
to reread Worm and talk about it vibe.
I love it.
It's subtle, but it's there.
It is there.
Pick up on it. Anyway, with that, once again, the next 8 chapters finish off Arc 11 for the next episode. Read along with us. And stay tuned, as always, for our sister podcast releasing for those of you who either don't care about spoilers or have read all of Worm. But if you don't care about spoilers, what are you doing? Care about spoilers. It's a great story. Read it first. But then join us. Come back as we discuss this arc and how we would adapt it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, hell yeah.
And until next time, Michael, can you please play us out?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening. Read along with us at parahumans.wordpress.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What did you love? What did you hate? Anything you think we missed, etc., as long as it's kind. If you'd like to get in touch, you can find us on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit at Brocktonbaybc, or click the link in the description. We have a very exciting announcement. We now have a voicemail, 980-999-0438. You can call us, and your voicemail might be featured on one of our episodes.
Do you still have bitter feelings about your ex and no way to get it out? Well, perhaps you could consider hiding it inside a worm-related rant. Tell us all about how Legend broke your heart, or just how Skitter won't call you back. We'll listen and air your grievances at 980-999-0438 on the podcast. That's right. Leave us a voicemail about your sad life at 980-999-0438.
What triggered you?